Well, welcome to another cult movie show, another cult movie podcast. It's number 19, and I am, of course, Warren, and joined in the virtual studio, as always, is my great friend, Velvet. How are you, Velvet?
I'm doing quite fantastic, and today I also brought along another of my great friends. This is Prez. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Prez.
Hey, thank you guys. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me on the show. My name is Prez, and I'm a music journalist. I love movies.
Oh, well, welcome.
He's multifaceted.
You're definitely in the right place. Whether everything we actually review would be classified as a movie, I don't know. Some of them are just some stuff people filmed. But generally, although I think we've got some good ones this podcast, we've definitely got some good ones, some good ones this week. So, I reckon we should just get started. And, our first cab off the rank, movie number one. And I must admit, I hadn't actually seen this film until this week. And I hadn't actually heard of this film, which is actually kind of weird because this was a cinema release film from everything I can actually remember. And it is, of course, Boxing Helena. Or Helena, I think I should actually say, from 1993. And it's basically, how would we describe it? An erotic thriller, I suppose, would be the best term.
Yeah.
What did everybody think after watching this or rewatching this again?
This for me is a guilty pleasure. I love this movie, and I actually hadn't watched it in a long time, so I was thinking, oh, you know what? This might end up being like Monster Squad. It might be something I loved when I was younger, but now I watch it as an adult and I'm like, what the fuck? No, I still love it. It is a what the fuck kind of movie, but I still love it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a guilty pleasure.
What were your thoughts, Prez?
I'll tell you what, I was very skeptical going into this because I thought it was just a love story. I didn't look it up online or anything, and I was completely shocked. I mean, I was like, wow. There's some classic scenes in this movie. But I liked it. I really did. I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
I think we should probably give the listeners just a very quick rundown on what the movie's actually about. And it's our main character is a doctor, meant to be one of the world's greatest surgeons. And but he clearly has some quite deep, scarring emotional issues brought on him by his mother, is the best way to describe it. He didn't have a very happy childhood, and he was basically ignored by his father, and I think the best way to describe it is abused by his mother. But as he grows older, he becomes this fantastic surgeon, but he falls in love or in lust with this woman called Helena, and he doesn't really seem to have very good social skills, although he does seem to have a doctor for a girlfriend, but he doesn't seem to have very good social skills. Not too sure how that all interworked, but we'll get to that in a minute. But he falls in lust with this woman, and after a whole heap of different things happen, but then she's hit by a car. And she loses her legs in the car crash. So he takes her into a house. Somehow or other, miraculously, he's able to do surgery on her in his house, where he gets the plasma from and everything. I don't know. But anyway, he does surgery on her and amputates her legs. And anyway, but then keeps her prisoner in the house, won't let her go, and slowly starts to amputate other bits to make her even more of a prisoner. Until we until we are literally left with just basically a head and a torso. But this movie does have obviously a twist at the end, but which I won't give away. Or I don't know, should we give it away? Because what are your thoughts, guys?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. It's up to you guys. I'm gonna let you guys call it, but it has a great ending. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about the ending just yet, but I definitely want to make sure we touch on the ending after we reveal more of our thoughts and like.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Because I'm actually going to defend the ending on this movie. But like I said, I don't want to talk about the ending before we talk more about the rest of the movie. So first off, this movie was directed by David Lynch's daughter, Jennifer Chambers Lynch, and this was her first directorial debut. She wrote this screenplay when she was 19. And I mean, this is a pretty fucked up story. I mean, at 19, I was definitely not writing screenplays when I was 19. So obviously she has some influence from her father there. This movie has definitely a little bit of plot holes to it, but at the same time, it's kind of like, how serious can you take a movie in which a man amputates a woman's limbs to keep her prisoner? And then can we just say, I mean, yeah, come on. And can we also say, wow, okay, Helena eventually falls in love with her captor. I mean, that is like the strongest case of Stockholm Syndrome on the planet.
Yes, I know. She's not just been held captive at gunpoint for 3 days. You know, she's slowly having bits amputated off herself. And I've got to admit, her recovery for just having limbs removed is incredibly fast.
Totally.
You know, but
totally. It regenerates.
Yes. But it's I'm sort of a bit lost for words. I mean, I enjoyed it, to be honest, but it is a bit out there. It's definitely out there.
It is. For how ugly the subject matter is, I mean, seriously, if you like straight up just tell somebody what this movie's about, oh, this man's infatuated with this woman, she doesn't want anything to do with him, she gets hit by a car in front of his house, so, you know, her legs get broken, so instead of, you know, fixing her, he just like amputates her legs, so now, you know, he's keeping her at her house. Then they get into a fight later, and he gets close enough to her that she's like strangling him. So he's like, oh, gotta take care of that shit. Can't have that happening. So then he cuts off her arms. You know, I mean, like, if you tell people the fucking story, this sounds really horrible. But it's amazing how this story is told in a way that even though you're shocked, you're not fully repulsed. You know, you feel sorry for the doctor because you're like, okay, this guy obviously has some fucking emotional problems. But then obviously you're feeling sorry for Helena because, like, it's not quite. She ain't got no legs. She ain't got no fucking arms towards the end. And so you're kind of like, okay, they don't really make it quite clear what Helena does, but I think she's supposed to be a retired fashion model. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what it is. Because she has this whole thing of she's very aware of her beauty and she's very aware of commanding attention and holding that attention very gracefully. And she also resents that attention because nobody wants to get to know the real her. They always just want her because she's beautiful and they want to possess her because she's beautiful. They never really see past the beauty. But at the same time, she's built up that hard exterior. She doesn't really give them a chance to see anything but her beauty. So she's got this whole attitude of, you know, I've always taken care of myself and, you know, I'm not going to let anybody take care of me or tell me what to do. But at the same time, because this is what I finally decided. I was like, she has to be a retired fashion model because evidently she has money and she doesn't work.
Well, we also see, was it Dr. Nick? Yeah, it is. It's Dr. Nick, isn't it? It's like, hi, everybody. Hi, Dr. Nick. But if you remember, he's actually looking through photographs, fashion photographs of her that he's actually got. So, yeah, I think you're quite right. But the other thing, though, that blows my mind a bit about it is that when she's captive, and I think this is before she has her arms amputated, she says that, you know, I don't need you. I don't need anybody. I'm going to reject you because I don't need anybody.
She's going to wipe your ass.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Yes, her toiletry habits would have been interesting. But, the thing is that she doesn't say, I hate you because you've imprisoned me and cut my limbs off. She says, I don't like you because I don't need a man in my life. It's like she's more concerned about whether she's dating him to whether he's removing extremities, which I just found amazing.
She's got her priorities fucked up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, that's why I was confused too for a minute because I was kind of like, okay, this beautiful woman goes missing and nobody seems to notice except for one guy who was dating her before she disappeared. So that's why I was like, okay, she must be independently wealthy. She doesn't have like an employer that's checking up on her. She doesn't have a close circle of friends that's checking up on her, which to me sounds a lot like a retired fashion model. You know,
yeah, I think you're right.
But yeah, but also the whole thing with Dr. Nick. Okay, so why he's obsessed with this woman, I'm not 100% sure. Yes, she's beautiful. Woman can't fucking stand him. But you see throughout the movie, he doesn't have problems getting women. He's a fucking surgeon. He has this massive mansion. He's not a bad looking guy. I love Julian Sands, the actor that plays Dr. Nick Kavanaugh in this movie. I actually love Julian Sands. I love him, and he's been the Warlock. He's been in so many other movies. I love Julian Sands. And I also love Sherilyn Fenn. That's one of the reasons I love this movie. I love them. I think they're just, for their appearance in this movie is very dated. The fashion's very dated. You know, because Dr. Nick has long hair, and men with long hair now is not so much a thing. And just Sherilyn Fenn, just being this beautiful, curvy brunette with small breasts, which is nice to see, because I feel like everybody has ginormous tits nowadays. And I just love the pairing of them in the movie. And even Bill Paxton is in this movie. And Bill Paxton's not like the biggest actor on the planet, but the year this movie came out, so did was it Tombstone? Which is like a really well-known Western. And here he is doing this like weirdo amputee sex movie. And the same year he's doing a mainstream Western.
Although I think...
so good range.
I wanted to ask, Prez, what did you think? Because I actually thought an extra credit should actually go to Bill Paxton's hair. Because that haircut... I mean, my God.
The mullet.
I know.
Yeah,
that's the classic.
He's got more.
Bill Paxton mullet.
He's got more hair than she does.
And the leather pants. Oh,
I
best
know.
shirt. Oh my God, 90s fashion. Oh, gross. So bad.
It is. But look, I mean, you can find lots of faults with this. I mean, you can find lots of faults with the story just being a little bit weird and out there and silly and stuff. But I have to admit, even though this film took a little bit of time to get going, once it gets going, I found that actually the story held me. I was actually interested I wanted to know what was going to happen. You know, I really did. Did you guys find the same thing?
Yeah. I wanted to find out what body part was going to come off next.
Is she going to get decapitated? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. But, no, you know, and I've seen this movie many times. I used to have this on DVD before I pretty much went full on digital. So, I mean, this used to be the movie that every once in a while I would just grab a bottle of cheap champagne, a box of donuts, and I would let this motherfucker run. And I love this movie. It's just so crazy. I think what appeals to me about it is, and don't take this the wrong way, guys, I'm not a megalomaniac, but I can relate to Helena on so many levels. You know, I've done sex work. I've been in that position where people can't get past your physical appearance, and they don't really, and they want to own you, and they want to tell you what to do, and they don't care anything else about you. They don't care about what you do for fun. They don't care about your feelings. They just want to have you as like a trophy, and that's how Helena feels. And this fucking Dr. Nick, he's saying he loves her, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't think you know any fucking thing about her other than she's fucking beautiful. Like, you know, I never got the impression that they were having like these, you know, deep, heartfelt, you know, analytical conversations about life or anything. It was just always, you're beautiful, I love you, you're beautiful, I love you. It's like, I want to make you feel good. And it's like, and at one point she calls him a little boy, and I'm like, yeah, that's what he's acting like, a little boy with a fucking crush. Well, except for this little boy is also a master surgeon.
yeah. But it's what did you actually think about Julian Sands' performance in this? Because when I first started watching it, I sort of thought, is this, because I've seen him in so many other movies, and he's quite a good actor. And I thought, what's going on in this movie? Like, is he intentionally trying to act bad? I couldn't work it out. But to me, as the story starts to get moving, you realise that he's just socially awkward. And I think he's trying to play it as a socially awkward person. But the problem is it comes across as if he's acting badly.
What is type of personality or something? Just really, like you said, you nailed it. Like really awkward, no social skills. But then at the same token, like you said, this guy is a surgeon. So it's like, how does he go from being like the most confident, trusted person to be in like a basket case. It was weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. That's a very, but I can see that happening. I know for the majority, most doctors are confident and they do have good social skills, but there is that small faction. Like they say, genius and insanity, there's a fine line. And he's one of those examples because he's very, very, very intelligent. But he's socially awkward as hell. Oh, and I forgot to say, guys, Art Garfunkel is in this movie.
Yes, he is. Garfunkel. I know. I was amazed when I saw that. I thought, are you kidding me? Really? And I thought, oh, there he is. Wow.
So I guess he was like a friend of the family. He had to have been to be in this fucking movie. Because, his character serves no purpose other than he's a friend of Dr. Nick Cavanaugh, and he's aware that this man's, like, totally crushed and heartbroken over Helena. And he's, kind of being the friend that's like, you got to let her go, man. Don't call her. Don't talk to her. Don't see her. You got to move on.
Trying to talk sense to him.
Yeah, but other than that, he didn't really have much to do in this movie. And also fucking Kurtwood Smith that you know better as, what's his name, from the 70s show?
Yes.
Or even...
Yes.
Or even from RoboCop when he says, bitches leave. Like, he's in this movie.
I was just expecting him to walk up to Julian Sands and said, my boot, your ass. And but and
he has the biggest eyebrows on the planet. Like his eyebrows should have got their own like credit billing in this movie. Just like there's one point where he's standing to the side and the camera angle, like his eyebrows are literally sticking out like 2 inches. Like you can I don't know. Just weird. Well, weird hair in this movie.
The other
facial hair.
Just the other thing too is that I know you said you're a big what's her name again? Fan.
Sherilyn Fenn.
Sherilyn Fenn. But of course, she wasn't the original cast. My understanding was originally they actually cast Madonna, and then she actually dropped out in pre-production. So she wasn't the original casting choice at all. And I've got to admit, in 1993, for this sort of movie, I really could have seen Madonna in this role.
Yeah. And also, the other choice that we know of is Kim Basinger also had been selected for this movie, and she signed on, and she actually dropped out, and they actually sued her to the point of bankruptcy. They bankrupted Kim Basinger for breach of contract. So what I'm noticing is, though, that both of these women are blondes. Anybody could be blonde. You can bleach your hair blonde. Believe me, I know.
Yeah.
And they could have. So I think it's interesting that they decided to go with a brunette actress because in all the flashbacks to Dr. Nick's mother, she's a blonde.
Yes.
So I think it would have made more sense if Helena, the character of Helena, had been blonde. Although I love Sherilyn Fenn and I think she was actually beautiful for this role and she just did it so well. Because really, there's so many actresses that could have taken this role and been like, oh, this movie's stupid. What the fuck am I doing? I think she really played it well. Like, she really gave it her all. I believe her. I don't at one point look at her going, oh, she hated this movie or she's doing so stupid or, she's not taking it serious. Like, she really gave it her all. But I think it should have been a blonde actress at the same time because I
agree
that there's some kind of connection between Helena and his mother. There's this weird embodiment of wanting his mother's love, but then also I think obviously his mother was really sexual around him, just like seeing her nude a lot, and he was aware of her having sex with men a lot that I think were not his father. And so I think he has that whole confusion, like a bit of an Oedipus complex. I think he kind of wanted to fuck his mother, and he has a lot of shame about that. That's why.
I actually think that there is almost an implied level of incest in this. It's never actually it's never shown or anything like that. But I do think it is implied that there was incest between the mother and the son. But I can't stand by that. It's just what I took from it.
There's definitely something there. And because he's like totally insecure about sex and he's a total preemie, he just, he's a 2-pump chump. So yeah, there's definitely something going on there. But
mommy love.
It was I don't know, I sort of felt it was a bit uncomfortable actually watching, some of those scenes where she's talking to her son, who's only meant to be, so it's when we see Nick when he's only meant to be 8 years old or something around that, or maybe a bit older, 10, something like that. but she's totally
Young.
naked, and it was very off-putting. I've got to admit. It was,
totally.
Yeah,
totally.
But then again, that was the whole intention, though. It was meant to be off-putting, you know.
Yeah,
although
definitely.
I do think it was also just another excuse to get some tits on the screen. But
hey, I'm all for tits.
Why not?
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
The more the merrier.
but
The more the merrier. Yeah.
I don't think Kim Basinger actually would have been right for this movie, to be honest. I mean, just from everything else I've seen her in, I don't think she would have played the part as well. I actually think
I don't either.
I think where the casting ended up was actually perfect.
Yeah, no, I think Sherilyn Fenn was perfect for this. I just think it's a little odd that they chose a brunette actress, or that they left her brunette for the movie, when obviously there's supposed to be some kind of parallel to his mother. And I think because her overall sex appeal and just like the natural beauty, it's just like the blonde hair would have driven the point home a little clearer for the audience, I think. And you were like, oh, there's his mother. It's like, that's his mother.
I don't know. No, I think you're right. I don't think it's crucial, but I do think you're right.
No.
But then again, the girlfriend was blonde. The girlfriend was blonde.
And she was so boring. I didn't like the girlfriend. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, she was kind of lame.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird because I was like, this girl is obviously a nice woman, but for some reason I was like, but okay, so yeah, this guy's dating this woman. He has a girlfriend. They're obviously in a pretty serious relationship. At one point in the movie, somebody even says, oh, I bet he's going to propose to you soon. So that tells you they've been dating for a while and it must be pretty serious.
Yeah.
But he's like, he's got his eyes on Helena the entire time. So I'm just like, yeah, this girl's got to go. I feel bad for her because she just reminded me of a doormat, you know?
She was like the movie Arthur, not the remake with the crappy remake. But the original one with Dudley Moore, which was I've forgotten his name now. Anyway, but the original one, do you remember his original girlfriend? Like, she would just do anything for him. It didn't matter how drunk he got, how offensive he got, whatever he did, she would just stand by him. It's like there's that great scene in the restaurant where she's there and she's got this whole poached fish and he's just got a glass of scotch. And he sort of says, I'm going to have another drink. Would you like another fish? And, but I saw the girlfriend very much in that light. She forgave him for everything. If he didn't turn up for dinner, it didn't matter. She would just be there for him regardless, you know?
Exactly. Like at one point, evidently, he hadn't spoken to her in literally weeks, no phone calls or nothing. And she just shows up and gives him a blowjob, which of course he lasted.
Yeah, that was a funny scene.
Yeah, just like, he's like in pain. He's like, oh, he's all balled up, grabbing his
for the first time
in weeks. And I love you, Jillian Sands, because you sold that role so hard. Yeah. Because he's such a good-looking guy, and he's such a fine actor, and like he really went crazy on this. There's a lot of weird things in this movie that I'm not 100% sure what they mean. I'm not sure if they mean anything. Again, this is David Lynch's daughter, so it may just be influenced from, having him as a father. Stuff like the entire time the doctor, Nick Cavanaugh, has, I guess, an ear infection, and they, show this. They show him putting drops in his ear, putting cotton in his ear. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be kind of like a Twin Peaks thing where they just did random weird shit that didn't mean anything. They kept showing the bird in the cage, which I totally get, but for some reason a lot of people are like, why do they keep showing the bird? Hello.
It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Caged animal, clipped wings, blah, blah, blah. But for some reason some people are like, I don't get that. Yeah, how feasible is it that he's performing amputation surgery at his mansion? And where did he put the limbs after amputation?
Yeah. Well, the garbage men would have got a surprise, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I was like, they never, I mean, there's quite a few plot holes in this movie, so you can't take it too seriously. It's a story about obsession and what you're willing to do to keep someone, in this case, against their will. And also, like, in his case, it obviously wasn't sexual because, okay, this woman can't run, can't hide. Now she has no arms, no legs. He could have been using her as a real-life sex slave. He could have been raping raping her every day on the daily, and he didn't. He wasn't. He wanted to take care of her. He's feeding her, he's bathing her, he's putting on her makeup, brushing her hair, cooking her food, keeping her company.
Little baby.
Yep. Yuck.
Oh, yes. 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 No,
It's almost what it was like.
but I think you're
Care
right.
of a child.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's almost like he's become the mother. You know, like if you think about it, you know, like he's been abused by his mother.
The nurturer.
Yeah, and now he has become the mother abusing this other person, turning them into a child where he has to feed them, care for them, look after them.
Wow. That's deep. I have never thought of that. All the years I've seen this movie, that's pretty. You know, I never thought of this because I was always drunk and eating donuts. That's why. See what? This is the first time I watched this movie sober in years.
I have to admit, I did have a couple of scotches while watching this. I must admit.
But you still got that out of it. That's pretty intense.
Oh well.
Want to talk about the ending?
Well, before we do though, there's something else. I just want to, like, especially Pez, what your thoughts were. On the statue, because the statue is so important, or not at the very end, but almost at the end. We keep seeing this statue, which of course is like an old sort of copy of a Greek or Roman statue, you know, missing the arms, missing the legs.
Like is that the Venus de Milo? That's the Venus de Milo, isn't it? Is that
Venus de Milo?
Venus de Milo? Yeah. Isn't it, I think?
No, it's not, because she's got legs.
Oh, my bad.
I wondered about that. You know, like, what's the significance of this? And we can't.
I thought it was foreshadowing.
Well,
talk about it to the end because
this is the problem. Something happens with the statue during a fight, and I don't want to give it away, but I think it's very, very poignant. It's a bit like there's a famous scene in the very original Jurassic Park where the dinosaurs destroy the fossil, like a Tyrannosaurus destroys the fossil of a Tyrannosaurus. Right? And if you sort of think about it in those terms, it's in some ways this. I almost see it a little bit like, and without giving away the ending, this won't make a lot of sense, but I'll say this because hopefully people will go and now watch the movie. But I think it's a little bit like the statue becomes Helena.
Oh, interesting.
There you go.
Wow, you guys got a lot out of this.
That's a good metaphor for
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah. The ending, I'm going to go ahead and ruin the full-on endings. No, I'm not ruining the part that Warren's keeping hidden for those of you that actually want to watch the movie. I am going to ruin the movie to this extent. The movie ends up to all be a dream. So now you don't feel so disgusting for enjoying the movie. So you know, okay, it was all a dream. This didn't really happen. At first, I didn't like that. Now I don't mind it, and I accept the ending of this film. I made peace with the ending of this movie simply because, first off, endings are hard. And this movie, there was no way it was going to have a happy ending. You cannot amputate somebody's arms, hold them fucking hostage, and then have a happy ending. It's just not going to happen. And so I think the only way she saw fit to be able to end this film full on so that you have some kind of closure as a viewer was for it to all be a dream. But something happens before the dream reveal that you definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, there's
logical explanation. Yeah, I mean, it has to be a dream.
Exactly. God.
Did you
a nightmare?
Did you like that dream concept, or did you think it was a bit Dallas and a little bit cheap? You know, it's like, oh, we need to bring back some characters, so let's just pretend the whole last year didn't happen. Did you see it in that light, or did you like the idea of the dream?
The dream.
What do you think?
The dream caught me off guard because I'm believing this shit. You know, I'm believing this guy running around, climbing in trees, making love to purses, and I wanted to have that reality of craziness, if that makes any sense. But
totally.
It caught me off guard. I was like, wow, it was almost kind of like a Jacob's Ladder type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's I just there's a couple of things about the ending, and that is that when does the dream start? Like we don't really know when the movie starts when the dream begins. Is the entire movie the dream, or does the dream start at a certain point? Because there's something about the girlfriend where she's behaving very differently in the hospital than the way she does at the start of the film. So it's like, where does the dream start?
I think I know, but if anybody wants to see this movie, I'm going to go ahead and keep a couple of things to myself so that it's not totally spoiled for them. But I think I know, and I can tell you guys off air. You guys can be a part of my inner circle of Helena Knights. So,
because there's another thing here that, once again, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a little thing that happens at the end where we see Nick, Julian Sands, grasping onto a medicine bottle. And what it's just a little bit of a thought that ran through my mind. Is anything that we've seen real?
Yeah. Could it all be
right?
Illusion?
Is everything we've seen, is Dr. Nick not even Dr. Nick?
Oh my God. That's awfully deep. That's some Twin Peaks shit right there.
Well, you think about when this movie was made.
I know. I can see where you're getting that from. That's a plausible theory. Theory. Well, you know what? Like, here's how far I went with it. I actually wasn't even going to say it, but since you said, I'll say this. Okay, so like you said, the medicine bottle and the fucking ear drops, and he's putting cotton in his ear. I'm kind of wondering if he has either a really, 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 really bad inner ear infection, which can fuck up your brain. Or if he's got some kind of or if he's got like a fucking brain tumor that's making him like woo-hoo-hoo like crazy. So, I mean, but I mean, I don't know. This movie's got a lot of weird, like very, I don't want to say subtle, because they're not subtle, but there's just like, you see them and you kind of forget about them. But upon reviewing this movie, you kind of go, I forgot about that. I wonder what that means. I wonder why they do that. I wonder why they showed that. Like, you never really get answers, and so your brain kind of starts reeling if you watch it again and again.
Definitely.
And again.
I reckon, this movie is definitely one that you can watch once and then maybe come back to a week later and watch again. Because I reckon...
See if you've missed anything.
Yeah, I really do think you'll start to pick some more stuff up on the second viewing. The shame was, though, that this movie actually was a total and utter flop. It didn't get any of its budget back, which was a real shame, because I think it deserves... hence why we're talking about it on a cult movie show, because it deserves a bit more than it actually got. I think so many people have just written this off as a mainstream erotic thriller, sort of a bit trashy, and it just goes into the pile at the back of the video store, where I reckon this movie is more than that.
Yeah, it lost so much money it couldn't even afford to pay Bill Paxton's hair.
No, I totally agree.
That hair was magnificent.
I actually don't consider this a B movie. I think there's a lot more substance to this film, but I think it's also because the material is so fucking out there. Like, amputeeism. Yeah, exactly. And amputeeism is still a really big taboo, although we've done so much with like prosthetics and reintegrating people into society to be physically able instead of just relegating them to being disabled. But still, it's there's a lot of people that still can't stomach seeing something where, a main character doesn't have their legs and then the main character doesn't have their limbs. And for a lot of people, once it hits that point, they can't take the movie serious at all anymore, which is a shame. And I think that's, the point. Because like you guys also mentioned, well, she's saying, I don't need anybody. But then you guys are like, well, who's going to wipe your ass? Some people just can't take a movie seriously when you have a main character that's disabled to that point.
I personally think that this movie, where it would have got a lot of its return, because obviously it didn't get really anything back at the cinema, but where it would have really got a bit of return is that I reckon there would have been young couples, because let's face it, 1993, the height of video stores on VHS, there would have been a lot of young couples walking backwards and forwards. They would have got the latest release of whatever it is they wanted to see. And then one of them would have sort of said, "Oh, this looks a bit naughty. Do you want to get this for later?"
Yeah.
And that's just what I think.
That's what you think.
Like, maybe I shouldn't even say this, but okay, so this movie came out in 1993, which means I was 13. I heard about this movie when I was probably actually about 14 or 15. But I remember I was 15 and I had a boyfriend, And I was like, we rented this movie and we watched it with my parents when my parents weren't home, and I already knew what this movie was. My friends told me the entire story, and they loved it. And they're like, "Oh, you have to watch this movie." I'm like, okay. And then it came on late night HBO, and I'm like, "Oh, I have to watch this movie." And I was like, "Oh, I love this movie." And then I had this boyfriend that I was too young to rent the movie. But he was able to rent it for, because he was only 18. I don't want to make it sound like it was something really bad. He was 18, so he was able to rent the movie. Or actually, I think he was 17, but he was still able to rent the movie, because back then they actually used to police that, like, "Oh, this is rated R, you can't rent this, or you have to show us your ID." But they would let you get away with it sometimes if you were 17. And I remember showing him this movie, like, "Oh, this movie's so good." And I think he was just kind of like, I think I blew his mind. I think I traumatized him with this movie. Kind of like, "Oh, this girl likes this movie, I don't know."
I reckon
scarred a poor guy for life. Right?
Yeah, I think I did.
I reckon it would have been a lot like that.
Mia Warren.
I reckon there would have been a lot of people who would have hired this just thinking it was going to be a bit of a naughty movie, and then been really fucking shocked at what they were actually watching. You know?
It was really gratifying for me to hear Prez say, "I was shocked." Like, yay, good. I want this movie to elicit response in people.
I remember when it came out. I remember seeing it, posters of it at the video store, and I thought, another love movie. I had no fucking idea what it was going to be.
Oh my God. You know what? I actually, before my friends told me what this movie was about, I actually thought it was a movie about a woman who boxes. I was like, "Boxing Helena, female boxer."
Yes, yeah.
Like, I didn't know. Yeah, the name, you don't realize what you're getting into until you watch the movie.
No,
or you listen to our podcast, then you go watch the movie, so you're better prepared.
When I first heard the title and then saw the box art, and I thought, this doesn't make sense. Like, I know. It's like, what? Boxing? What? Until you realise, boxing. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, okay, I get it now.
Okay, I'm gonna have to admit, this is the first time I watched this movie, and I actually felt a little disturbed, which is weird. I think it's just because now I'm older, and like I said, I was watching this sober for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
I actually found it really disturbing when she's been quadruple amputated. And he literally has her in like that box seat on top of a table.
Yeah, I know.
With flowers. That actually bothered me this time when I saw. I'm like, wow, that's really fucked up. She's like a table decoration.
Yes, she's become an ornament in the house.
Yes,
I know. Yes. Yeah, she literally has become an ornament. Yeah, I know. It's really kind of weird to watch. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, that was a really disturbing visual. I was like, whoa.
I know.
A little bit.
I'm kind of like, I hope my friends still like me after watching this movie.
Well, I suppose we should actually sort of let everyone know what our thoughts are then. I mean, so on the Eric Roberts scale, the great man himself, how would everybody rate this one?
Okay, I'm going to give this 4.5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because this is definitely a film worthy of cult status. I think the storyline on this is really extremely original. It's a tale of obsession, unfulfilled, unrequited love, and also unconditional love. Because this woman's like, "I hate your fucking guts. I think you're pathetic." And this guy wants to care for her and take care of her no matter what. And he's not sexually abusing her, although he does physically mutilate her. But
yes.
You know what I mean. But and so I'm giving it 4.5 Eric Roberts on the Roberts scale, simply because the 0.5 is for the little plot holes that you kind of go, well, what is that? What does that mean? What is this?
Okay,
but other than that, definitely
amazing.
worth watching.
Well, what about you, Chris? What do you reckon?
I'll go 1 point down. I'll give it a 3.5. I thought it definitely captivated me all the way through. It was weird as hell. There were some great scenes in it that are stuck in my mind forever. And I just think, like the whole dream thing, that could have been worked out a little bit differently. But other than that, I enjoyed myself. Great movie.
Right on.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good movie. Definitely, I reckon you get a lot more out of it second time around. There are some plot holes. There are some serious plot holes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I originally was going to give it 3 Erics, but I'm going to raise that to 4 because the music in this movie is brilliant. It's something we didn't actually mention. There are certain scenes in this which it was especially the music they were playing were really big tracks, like in the early 90s. And many of the scenes in this with the music, they're almost shot like MTV music videos. Mm-hmm. And so,
I totally agree.
And so, so I'll give it, so I'm going to raise it up to 4 Erics. Yeah, I reckon it's pretty good. I reckon it was pretty good. Definitely, I'd recommend it to people.
Oh,
excellent. So Boxing Helena, 1993, it has 12 Eric Roberts out of 15 possible Eric Roberts.
So that's not bad, actually.
Yeah, not bad at all. That's actually pretty high.
It's actually one of the best ratings we've ever given, you know. So, okay, no, that was really good. So, so Boxing Helena. Now, I haven't looked up to see if it's available on iTunes or anything like that. But I'm sure that this one will be available on Amazon. If not,
definitely.
If not, we'll generally find there'll be some versions of it available online. Not that we would ever suggest that you would do such things, but I'm sure you will find some.
Oh, no, not us.
So no, definitely. Definitely. Check this one out.
I worked in the garden center, and a lady came in, and we had the flowers and the plants, and she asked me how much the chlamydias were.
The Only Funny to Us podcast, available now at onlyfunnytous.com.
Now, movie number 2. This is one, honestly, I wouldn't have really originally thought about talking about until it came up in conversation. And then I thought to myself, no, this actually deserves it. This is a cult classic. This really is. And it is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Probably weren't expecting us to talk about this film, but I am so glad that we are, because I hadn't watched it, I haven't seen it in about 10 years, and I got to rewatch it during the week, and I had forgotten just how amazing this movie is from 1975. Now, just very, very briefly for anyone who hasn't seen this movie, because there might be some, people who are 16, 17, 18 who haven't seen it. It's basically about a guy who's in prison, and he tries to fake the system to get out of prison by pretending to be mentally disturbed so he can be sent to a psychiatric hospital, where it'll be a lot easier to do that than to be working on the chain gangs and so forth. Because this movie, even though it's from 1975, is actually set in 1965. Okay, so everyone's got to get their heads around that. But the problem is that when he goes there, some really interesting stuff starts to happen. We would start to ask so many questions about who is really mentally disturbed and who isn't mentally disturbed. The question is that, well, actually, is he maybe mentally disturbed himself but just doesn't know it? And then it all deals around the concept about the friendships that he makes, the loyalties that he starts to make, and then, of course, his attempt to try to escape, but things don't really go, the way that that he wanted them to. Now, what are everyone's thoughts? Because, this movie is, of course, huge. It's a multi-Academy Award winning movie. I suppose, Press, we've got to start with you, because I know this is one of your favourite movies of all time.
And it was also Prez's suggestion.
That's right.
Yeah, I had to suggest this because I've been watching this movie since I was a kid. I was born in 78. It came out, I think, in 75. So I've been watching it my whole life, and I never get tired of it because it's fucking hilarious. Like, there's a scene where they're all gambling in the rec room, and Danny DeVito, of course, is in it. And they're betting with cigarettes, and he keeps saying, I bet a dime, but he breaks his cigarette in half. And Jack Nicholson's like, this isn't a dime. This is shit. You can't smoke it. You know, I mean, there's so many fucking scenes in that movie, and you just can't get tired of it. It's just timeless. A lot of good humor in it, too.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it's got such an amazing story to tell, but it is done in a way that you don't sort of, because if you're watching people in a mental sort of hospital, it could be so incredibly depressing. But this movie is not depressing. It's actually able to, even though a lot of bad shit happens, it's upbeat enough that the audience doesn't turn away. You know, the audience keeps engaged. What are your thoughts, Velvet?
Yeah, I'm so happy that you did suggest this film, Perez, because it also helped our show to grow, because we've always been very B-level cult classics, but we were like, no, there's a lot of mainstream, huge, iconic, blockbuster, successful films that also have cult status. And this one, I like that because this touches on that subject of mental health and mental health facilities, which is always really controversial. A lot of times when films touch on this subject, it's always a very sad story, and it's always sometimes it's portrayed as a horror film. And this film has that really like even edge of comedy, but with that underlying message, like they said, what is insanity? Because I think in this case, and I haven't read too much into this, I'm sure there's been millions of reports and analyses done on this, but I'm pretty sure that Jack Nicholson's character has antisocial personality disorder, which would very easily land him in jail or mental institutions because he's always going against the status quo, and people view that as crazy. And this is definitely a cult classic for the ages, just because it does talk about, it goes against societal norms, and it talks about mental illness and the treatment of patients in mental health facilities. You know,
although it should be, I suppose, emphasised that this movie is, of course, it was based on a book originally. Of course, it is set in 1965. So what you see inside the mental health institution is it's a bit of a time capsule within itself, because mental health facilities, well, in the Western world anyway, I can't speak for Albania, okay, but in the but in the Western world, they do not look like this anymore. You know, I mean, this is a time capsule. So it's very interesting to see how we used to treat, you know, people with mental disorders or mental disease, you know, back in the 1960s. And it's quite horrific, you know, the way we did sort of do that. But it's brutal. But the other thing, though, is that the main character played by Jack Nicholson is, of course, a bit of an anti-hero himself, because there is no doubt in this story that he is a criminal. I mean, this guy
totally.
You know, this guy, he's not some innocent person taken off the street and just, you know, and committed to a mental institution. I mean, this guy has been, you know, abusive. This guy has beaten people up. Like when he says to his girlfriend, just steal a car, you know, like he doesn't give a
like
shit.
It's no big deal.
No, he doesn't give a shit. Yeah, he doesn't give a shit about society. And remember,
and he also has a statutory rape. He has a statutory rape count, which is always a gray area, where he's like, well, she said she was 18, but I tell you she was 15 going on 35. Like he has that whole mentality of, well, society says it's illegal, but the way she was acting, you know,
I could hardly keep my pants.
Totally going against
I mean, it's it's
totally
really
going against society's rules.
I mean, it's really interesting. I know that you guys in America call that statutory rape. In Australia, that's a very, very simple crime. It's called pedophilia. You know, so it's a very, very serious crime with actually very serious jail term, you know, that comes to it. He's not Mr. Nice Guy, you know.
No, definitely not.
by any means. But it is interesting, though, that even though, you know, we think that he's meant to be playing this whole being mentally disturbed. But of course, the people who run the hospital they think they can see a bit more to this, and they think that he really is mentally disturbed because the fact he can't control himself, he can't control his violence and so forth. And this is something that's always discussed by so many people who watch this movie, and that is that, is he mentally disturbed or isn't he? I just wondered what everyone else's thoughts were.
Well, I definitely think he is mentally disturbed because he's able to just interact with the rest of them, and he gets them all fired up. That's one thing I love about this movie. I mean, all he has to, like the baseball scene where they're pretending to watch the World Series.
Yeah.
He's calling it. They're all going. He's got them all just going fucking ape shit, and it's great to see that. But I think, he's definitely mentally disturbed.
Well, that's interesting because I don't really see him as mentally disturbed, but I think he has a personality disorder. And I don't want to get too technical, but basically that according to society standards, he has a personality disorder. He doesn't follow the rules. He's antisocial. But at the same time, he could have a little bit of mental illness. He may just, there's manic depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, whatever you want to call it. He's straight on manic. He doesn't have the depressive part of it. So he's just like full power all the time. Go, 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 acting crazy, riling everybody up. So, I mean, that's also something that if it goes unmedicated, you do a lot of irrational stuff without thinking about the consequences. And so if he was manic along with having antisocial personality disorder,
he'd probably be a killer. Yeah.
Exactly. There's nothing this guy could do but be in jail or mental health institution because he's always going to be breaking the rules. He's always going to be getting in trouble, getting into fights, fucking the wrong people.
Although I do see it from a slightly different perspective, and I think the last 18 months, I don't want to go down that track, but what we've seen in a certain country over the last 18 months, I do wonder whether there's a lot more to his character, and that is that if this character clearly is a poor man, like he's been brought up in poverty, he hasn't been born with a silver spoon in his mouth. But I do wonder if you take his character, put him into a wealthy family with lots of money, whether he wouldn't be seen as being antisocial at all. He'd be seen as being a successful businessman.
That's a good,
that's a good theory. Because then he would have a different way to channel that energy too. He would have all those resources available to him. That's a great argument.
And I just, it's something that I had never really thought about watching this movie until rewatching it this week. And just with all the events that have happened, and I don't want to talk about that because we're not about that. But the thing is that it did make me just think, give this guy a silver spoon, and would he be a very different person, even though he's still behaving exactly the same way?
That's a great analogy, Warren. And many people, you wonder if you do that for this guy, would he have gone in a different direction? Would Dahmer have eaten 15 people if things were a little bit different at home? Who knows? But that is a great thing to think about. I never even crossed my mind. Never even crossed my mind.
Yeah. So is he a victim of circumstance and social status, or is he just naturally born fucking crazy? Like,
I think a little of both, maybe.
It's a really, really interesting point. But the other thing too is there's I just wanted to bring up The Simpsons when we're talking about this movie, because if you haven't seen this movie, there will be about 5 or 6 episodes of The Simpsons that won't make any sense, because this movie has taken off scenes in this movie in about 6 different episodes.
Yes,
so, if The Simpsons is doing that much to this movie, I think the only other movie they do it to quite as much is Planet of the Apes. It's
but
interesting.
It's also not just Simpsons. I can't think of off the top of my head, but this is a cultural icon. This definitely is referenced in pop culture on different TV shows and songs and other literature and in pranks and jokes. Yeah, this is, if you haven't seen this movie, you need to see it just so you're up to date on pop culture, so that when people make references to this film and to the book, you know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's because obviously there's a very famous character in this called the Chief. What is he meant to be, about 7 feet tall? And of course everybody thinks he's deaf and dumb. but we know better. Through our main character, Jack Nicholson. So what did everybody think of the Chief's character? Because so many people, who once again, as I said before, write reviews on this and have studied this book and movie, that his character is the essence, actually, of this story.
Yeah, it's vital to the movie. You take him out of the movie, you got to rewrite a lot of shit. So I definitely think his character is very important to the movie.
Oh,
yeah. Also, his character is the song is supposed to be really one of the strongest people there. Yet he chooses to act like he's totally disabled, that he can't hear, that he can't speak, that he can't properly communicate, and he just wants to be left alone. So it's like he has all this strength, and he's afraid to be strong because he doesn't want to be the center of attention. He doesn't want the responsibility that his strength brings.
Oh, well,
because they probably ask him to move a lot of shit all the time.
But there's also in this that whole idea of that ancient British story of King Arthur. And I don't know if you guys have seen this in the story, but because the idea is that Jack Nicholson's character, at sort of about a quarter of the way into the movie, says that he's going to escape by picking up a giant wash bowl stand, which is attached to the floor, and he's going to pick it up and throw it through the window and escape. So, of course, he tries to pick it up, but he can't, okay? Then, towards the end of the movie, and I think I can say this because everybody knows about this movie, right? The chief does manage to pick this thing up and throw it through a window. And the thing is, and of course that brings about, the ending of our film. But the thing is that if you think about it, it's Excalibur. That's King Arthur drawing Excalibur from the rock. So Jack Nicholson has tried, to do what he can do, but obviously something happens to Jack Nicholson because his plans all go wrong. And so now it's handed across to the chief. And can he do it? Yes, he can. He draws Excalibur out of the rock and becomes King of the Britons. And I think there's a lot to that. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah, there's definitely a parallel in that.
Yeah, I never even thought of it like that. And, he definitely pulled the sword out of the stone, so to speak. And,
he assumed responsibility. He took power. He took his power. He claimed what was his. He claimed his power. And in his case, he decided to live his life instead of wasting it in an insane asylum, pretending to be deaf and dumb. He decided to, take his power back and live his life that he's entitled to.
And when he does that in the movie, Christopher Lloyd's reaction, who plays Max Tabor, which is fucking great.
Yeah, I like him in this movie.
Oh, the characters in this movie, though, are just phenomenal. I mean, they really are. Should make a fucking action figure set of this whole fucking movie. Trading cards,
the chemistry
the whole
amongst the end. Yeah, the chemistry amongst the actors. Like, actually, in this movie, I don't think there's one single bad actor. Everybody plays their role spot on. Because, in a lot of movies where somebody's playing a mentally ill character, they just go off the wall and they do dumb shit and they act stupid. And these guys were all very believable, though. Yeah, you have the guy that, like, Christopher Lloyd was just a fucking asshole who loved to agitate people. And you see him just picking on that one guy. Come on. And then, exactly. And then, like, you have the other guys that just can't control their emotions, so they just fly off the handle and start crying and screaming about the dumbest shit, like wanting their cigarettes. And then, and there's that one guy, he has no lines in the entire movie. Every time you see him, he's fucking dancing, and I'm like, you know what? If I ever go fucking crazy and I'm in a mental health hospital, that's what I want to do. I just want to fucking dance all the time. That's the character I want to be. That's the character I want to be.
Do you think because obviously another one of our main characters is the head nurse. And
oh my God.
Now, do you think that her character is actually a truly sort of caring health professional who is trying to do her very best to actually help these people, or do you think she's actually on a power bender? Because this is often argued about.
Power bender. I think there's certain points of her where she genuinely does care, but for the most part, she's the head nurse in charge. I mean, she wants to flex her authority, and just like a perfect example is the World Series. Well, there's plenty of patients on this ward that can't hear the music. All these other things that she does that to flex her authority. I definitely think she was on a power trip. That's what I got from her.
Yes.
I think she's a mixture of both, because I have, family members who are in the nursing field, and I've seen them in action, and I've seen when they're following the rules and how stern they can be. But I've also seen how they can bend the rules to fit their power when they're just being annoyed by patients, or when they just don't want to deal with certain things that patients are asking about. So I think she's a little bit of both. I really do think she cares about the patients, and I really do think she's following the rules because she thinks it's for their benefit. But at the same time, she definitely sometimes it's just kind of like, well, I don't want to hear men screaming about fucking baseball, so we're just going to play this shitty music instead.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a little bit of both, especially the part with Billy. There, I think she was just disappointed to see what she considered to be a little boy having sex, because obviously he was a young man. But I think she was just disappointed that he was no longer a little boy in her eyes, and so she was trying to put him back into that little boy position by threatening to tell his mother. And obviously, he had some major mental issues with his relationship with his mother, and
like Julian Sands. But he should have won an Oscar for the movie too. I thought he was great.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
For such a young actor, and he's been in other movies. If you fast forward,
Brad Dourif, that's Chucky.
Yeah, that's Chucky. Mississippi Burning. Just a great actor.
In the Halloween reboot directed by Rob Zombie. But no, I seriously love Brad Dourif, and he's so cute in this movie. Everybody in this movie was so cute. Even the ugly guys were cute because they're so fucking young. Fucking Danny DeVito. Oh my God.
I know.
He's so young. Oh, it just, everybody was amazing in this. Fucking Christopher Lloyd doesn't have gray hair.
I reckon if you're under 30, you won't recognise a number of the actors in this. I think. I think, right. I think a lot of the younger audience will watch it now and be quite stunned that, oh my God, you mean that's whoever? That's whoever? Are you kidding me? Because you don't remember, we are watching something that was made in 1975, and so many of the actors are in this. The younger audience, the millennial audience, they don't picture these people at that age. Brothers
is.
But I also thought the other thing too with the head nurse is that there's also, it's not just power, she's also trying to push her own moral code onto some of these people. I mean, for instance, at the end where she's saying that he's going to tell his mother that he slept with this woman, and the thing is that all of them have broken the rules. I mean, they've been drinking, they've smashed the place up, they've had this huge party. All of them have done something terrible, but she doesn't see that as being so terrible. But sex, oh my God, that's just no. So it's almost like, she wants to push her own moral code, as well.
Totally. Look how tightly wound her hair was. I mean, she was wound tight everywhere.
So, it's a great character though. It's absolutely great, great character. But it's interesting too how Jack Nicholson, his character is, he creates such, it becomes so bonded with these people, which also suggests to me that he doesn't really have any friends in the world, like in the outside world. And when he meets these people and suddenly he's now this big fish in a small pond, these people actually respect what he says. They look up to him. They want to hear what he has to say. And suddenly he realizes that these people, he means something to them, and then suddenly they mean something back to him. To the extent that his whole escape plan goes down the gurgler because he's trying to help them. You know, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. He and the chief just could have jumped out the window and gone to Canada. But they don't.
Right.
They hang around because they don't want their friends. They want their friends' party to keep going.
Right,
know?
Exactly. And they want to get Billy
Yeah.
laid.
Yeah.
And it cures his stutter.
That's a priority.
Yeah.
It must happen.
I think it's a fantastic movie. It's got so much, sort of going for it. And I think the one thing for anyone who hasn't seen it is we must say that even though it's set in a mental institution in the 60s where life was pretty harsh, but this movie is still uplifting.
Yeah, it is.
And even with the ending, you don't feel sad. You actually feel a really good sense of closure on the ending of this film.
Oh yeah,
because even though like things turn out way different from what you expect, you're happy to see like Chief. Basically, I'm not a fan of saying that name because that's a rather racist name nowadays.
Yeah.
To call a Native American chief, but that's what they call him in the movie. But seeing Chief take his power back and claim his life, I mean, that's really uplifting. That's a great ending. And it's iconic. Yeah. I mean, it's been parodied, it's been made fun of, it's been referenced on The Simpsons.
Yes.
I mean, it's iconic. You have to see it.
Even the British comedy television show Father Ted parodied the ending of this movie. It has been parodied and sent up on so many different, other movies or comedy shows and so forth. So, but that brings up another point because this movie is seen as being so crucially important to the history of movie making that it was actually, I believe, the 20th movie to be lodged, in other words, stored in Washington for the American Film Institute historical list. So there is actually a print of this stored in Washington, along with, I don't know how many movies it is now. Well, you do the maths. This was 20th movie in 1993. So, but every year they choose a movie to be historically stored. And this is actually in there. So that says a lot.
It's marked for preservation, exactly. So if anything ever happens and all film is gone, you'll be able to hopefully go to Washington and be like, okay, all the garbage is gone. These were the best. Here you go. Have at it.
I'm curious what was your guys'? I know I'm the guest. I shouldn't be asking questions. But
go for it. Go for it.
Favorite scenes. What were your guys' favorites?
You want to go first, Warren? I have to think for a second, to be honest.
There's a few, to be truthful. I don't think for me there's so much favourite scenes. It's just the story that I find quite, it just draws me more and more and more as it goes on. I've got to admit, some of the card playing scenes, though, are very, very funny. For instance, where he keeps saying, hit me. No, it's not your turn. Hit me. No, you've got 30. Hit me. No,
you've got. He's going to really hit him, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So you've got 35. Hit me. No. Yes. So that's pretty good.
Scenes. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I finished. No, go for it.
Okay. My favorite scenes are actually sad scenes, but just because. It just really pushed the actors and really having to show their skills. So the first scene for me would be when you realize that Billy is scored with this hot chick and it's cured his stutter. Like he has confidence now and now he's lost his stutter.
Yeah.
And seeing him lose his stutter and then how quickly he gains that stutter back when he's being, treated like a little boy. And I was just like, wow, that's great range to go from, this really fun, confident, cute guy to all of a sudden this just stuttering, and he's even on his knees at one point, like holding onto the hem of Nurse Ratchet's, dress, like, please, don't have to tell her, and then my other favorite scene, again, another sad scene, is when, sorry, slight spoiler for our listeners, is when Jack Nicholson, our main character there, R.P. McMurphy, doesn't know he's going in for shock treatment. He has no idea. At least I think he didn't know. He had no idea he was getting shock treatment. He knew something was up, but he didn't know what the fuck they were doing until they did it. And the way he did, just the physical contortions on his face, making his body convulse, you felt it. It looked like he really, they gave him a good shock of 10,000 volts. minutes. And I was just like, just really great visceral acting in this movie without coming across as campy or over the top. Just really emotional, just great performances, definitely.
Jack Nicholson is one of those actors that I can, quite honestly, and I know everyone in the world will disagree with me on this, but I can take him or leave him. I mean, I think a ton of his really famous roles are really shit. Because to me, he overacts so much. I don't really think he's a brilliant actor. But then again, he will take a role like this and he is amazing. You know, he is so good. He is so good. And I actually think this is the best movie he ever made, to be truthful.
I think you're right. I think I have to agree. This is the most challenging role I think he ever had, to be honest. Because I think anything else, he has so much star power and star value that he knows he can just be himself and use his charisma and he's good to go. Whereas with this movie, he still had to build up that reputation. So he had something to prove.
Yeah, although wasn't he in the Monkeys, what was it called, Head? Wasn't it?
I didn't know he's in that.
Yeah,
really?
I'm sure he was in Head. I think it was his first actual official role, I think.
I didn't know that. I have to go. I loved the Monkeys when I was a child, and I remember trying to watch Head when I was a kid, and I lasted about 10 minutes. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I never watched it.
Yeah, but
now I'm an adult. I think I can handle weird shit, so I'm going to have to check that out.
But that's what happens.
Yeah. But that's what... an uncredited credit in it. He's a movie director at Film Shoot in Restaurant. Okay, I'm going to check that out.
He's, well, the thing about Head, though, which is so weird, is that you take a TV show which was made by, TV producers and directors and all the rest of it, making what they thought was going to be a kids' TV show, but then the actors they got wanted to become a real band, play their own music, and then wanted to express their art. So they made Head, and then everyone went to the cinema and said, "What the fuck was that?" Because I know they were expecting what they'd seen on TV, and what they got was not what they'd seen on TV.
Not at all. I was like, and I mean, I'm obviously a way later generation. That movie came out in 1968. I was born in 1980, so everything I knew about the Monkees was from reruns on television.
Me too.
Yeah, Monkees movies coming on. I'm like, oh goody, the Monkees. And I think I even said to my mom something like, oh, the Monkees are on. And she's like, oh, really? And she's like, oh, Head? She goes, that movie's weird. And I was like, what? And I remember being like, how are the Monkees weird? What is she talking about? But then, like 10 minutes in, I was like, I can't watch this.
Yeah. I think there were a lot of fans who were very disappointed by that movie. It was like, it's like, because the thing was, the Monkees were like, X Factor, they were... I'm just trying to think of these artificial bands that they've got now. There's so many of them, but the problem was then they tried to go it alone, and it was like it just didn't work.
Yeah, people just it was a hard transition. You got to do a slow, easy transition. They went too fast, too hard, and people were just like not ready. Well, that's artistic.
That's the problem.
Weirdos.
It's like when most of your music's been written by Neil Diamond, and now it's being written. Now it's going to be written by Mickey Dolenz. No, it's like I mean, you think about it. It's such a huge change for people that it's like, wow, what happened there? You're not the same band. And it's like, well, that's because we were never a band in the first place. We didn't become a band until we'd finished the TV show, So, it's kind of weird. But anyway, we're not talking about the Monkees. So look, I don't even think I need to ask for Eric ratings on this, but I'll do it anyway. Velvet, how would you rank it?
Okay, I'm going to give it 10 Eric Roberts out of 5.
Okay, nothing more needed. Yeah, go for it.
10.5.
10.5.
Oh, there you go. 10.5 out of 5.
10.5. Well, I'm okay. Well, if we're going down this path, all right, then I'm going to go 9 because
there you go.
Because I know a lot of people say this is one of the best movies ever made in human history. And I don't actually believe that that's correct, so I'm going to drop a point off it from that. But then again, I'm still giving it 9 out of 5, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking high.
You know,
Definitely.
In
So
fact,
this is definitely a cult classic, cultural film icon. If you've not seen it, you definitely need to see it. If you're a film buff, and get your roster of cult films filled out with this one. So
I'll put it to you this way: if you're a sociology student in high school, or whatever it's called in wherever you live, secondary school, senior school, high school. I know every country's got a different name, but you know what I mean. When you're a teenager, if you're studying sociology at school, you will either be asked to read this book or you will be forced to watch this movie. I remember having to write a paper on this movie when I was at university. So it's that big. That's just how big it is. So,
and you just turned in the paper you wrote when you were in high school. You were like, oh, good thing I already wrote that paper.
Well,
that's for my college assignment.
Actually, that's not actually what happened. I didn't actually get to see it at school, to be honest. Because simply it was the subjects I did. It wasn't until I went to university, and one of the majors I had was sociology, and it was actually meant to be about the book. I was actually meant to write it about the book, but I was so busy partying and drinking and doing all the other stuff.
You watched the movie?
I never actually read the book, and so I actually rented the movie and did the report on the movie.
There we go. How close is the movie to the book? I didn't ask. Does anybody know?
I don't know, because I still haven't read the book, to be truthful.
Yeah, me neither. But I do have the deck of cards.
This is a film podcast, not a book podcast, so fuck it.
Yeah, I know. Although my old university lecturer still thought I did. But anyway. Anyway.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
All right. So definitely to everybody, check this movie out. It really is good. I mean, I think, to be honest with you, anyone over about 25 has probably seen this film, to be truthful.
Yeah.
But there probably will be some younger ones out there who haven't. So I would say to you, definitely check this out. It's on iTunes. It's on Netflix. It's readily available. Definitely, check it out. It's about 2 hours. It's not a short. It's more than that. It's about 2 hours, 15 minutes, I think. But trust me, this is a movie that gets straight into the plot. There's no hanging around. You are straight into it, and it will keep you on your seat for the entire 2 hours, 15 minutes, without a doubt.
It's an emotional roller coaster, too, because it's filled with laughter, but it's also, there's a lot of sad scenes. There's a lot of scenes where you're cheering. You're like, yeah, like when they steal the bus. That was great. When they go fishing.
When they go fishing,
to be doctors. Like every one of them is a doctor. This is Dr. Scanlon. This is Dr. Martini. This is Dr. Cheswick. And the guy's looking at him like, okay. And they go take off, and it's great. That's
that is actually. I'd almost forgotten about that scene. That is so good, because it was at this stage he's almost still using them. He hasn't really quite bonded with them as friends yet, and he's sort of using them for his own. All he wants to really do is just get out, and so he can basically score with his girlfriend. Well, not girlfriend, but just female friend. And but when they go off, you can actually see he's starting to bond, because like when one of them does, he sends them off on the back of the boat, and they're all meant to be fishing while he goes into the cabin to be with his with the woman. But then one of them catches a fish, and they all start getting excited, and and so it's you can almost see that's the point where when he steals the bus and takes the patients out, he's using them. By the time he's back in the mental institution, they're friends.
Yeah.
Well, because they enjoyed that. I mean, Cheswick is driving the boat, singing "Popeye the Sailor Man."
And plus, he treats them like a regular person. He doesn't treat them like they need to be medicated, and like they need to be held in captivity, and like they need to be constantly policed and watched over. He's like, here, hold the wheel, steer straight, and he's like, he doesn't need to be supervised. He treated them like they were regular people.
And it's quite amazing that fishing trip is once again another scene that was done on The Simpsons. So, if you remember, it's when Lisa and Bart break all the people out of the old person's home and take them out on a boat.
Oh, how cute.
So yeah, so that's
that show is going into its 30th season, and I'm one of those people. There's no way I've seen every episode. There's no way. There are just so many episodes now. I'm just like, wow.
It's
30th season. Wow.
I still think it actually. Well, we're getting off the point, but I still think, although mind you, we do that all the time, don't we? So I mean, I actually think that The Simpsons, even though it's an anime, The Simpsons has become more than a cartoon, more than an anime. It's like, I actually think it's one of the most important American sitcoms of all time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
They predicted a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a whole
Some
other
recent
episode.
events.
I'll tell you what, there's
other
been some
episode.
clips still going around social media at the moment, yeah. That's amazing how... Have you seen the escalator scene, though, from The Simpsons with that? Just how...
Yeah,
that's mind-blowing. That how it's almost identical.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
I know. Yeah, absolutely amazing that. Absolutely amazing. So anyway, so that was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So yeah, definitely check that out, and we will be right back with movie number 3.
Oh, we're just careening off the track.
This is going to be a long edit.
Oh, God. That's staying in there.
Okay.
The Only Funny to Us podcast with brand new episodes every Monday night at 8 at onlyfunnytous.com.
Well, we're back with movie number 3, and I have to admit I am so excited about this one. I really am, because this is one of my favourite movies of all time. It's not just one of my favourite movies, this is one of my favourite subjects of all time. Because this movie is more than just a movie. This is a whole culture involved in this movie. So it is, of course, Sheen Queen of the Jungle from 1984. And I just adore this movie so much. I've got an electronic copy of it. I've got a DVD copy of it. I've got the soundtrack to it. And even going back, I've got the original cartoons. I've got the original TV series. I've got the latter TV series. I am a Sheena junkie. So, after all of that, what did everybody think? And then we'll just give everyone a quick rundown of what the movie's about.
Okay, going into this movie, I did not have high hopes. I was just like, oh my God, what is this? And then like about 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh wait, I saw this scene when I was a kid. And then I was like, okay, wait, I've definitely seen some of this when I was a kid. But you know what? I actually ended up loving it. I really, 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 really liked this movie. I didn't think I was going to, but I was like, this is really fun. Loved it. What do you think, Prez?
I'll tell you what, I started watching a few minutes of it, and I was like, hold up, I gotta go burn one and watch this completely fucked up. And it enhanced my experience like 10 notches. It was, I loved it. Because there were so many silly fucking things in this movie that you couldn't help but laugh. I mean, there were scenes in this movie, like there was one scene where they broke someone out of prison and the elephant came through the wall. It reminded me of Donkey Kong Country. You know, where you ride on the rhino and you just go through walls and shit. I mean, it was just great. And the way the main character, Sheena, can summon the animals, like she touches her forehead and they all start coming out of the jungle. And I thought it was great. But I do recommend, if you are a smoker, burn a couple before you watch this. It will really enhance it.
And if you're not a smoker like me, you can also enjoy this movie sober.
Yeah.
So it goes either way.
I'm going to try watching it sober. I'm going to see how it turns out sober.
We should just, I suppose, explain to everybody what the story sort of is to this movie. So, obviously, our main star is Sheena. Now, she is the, let's start from the beginning. Basically, it's set in Africa, and The story of Sheena is similar, but also very, very different in a way to the story of Tarzan. It's meant to be a young person, basically European, or who is brought up by in Africa, and then of course becomes like this jungle person and so forth. So the idea with Sheena is basically that her parents take her to Africa. They're scientists when she's a very young child. They're killed. She's then raised by an African tribe, and she basically becomes the prophet, or not the prophet, but the one that they've been waiting for to come and save their tribe when a great disaster is going to come. So, of course, Sheena is now basically this jungle woman, this, beautiful, gorgeous, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman who rides zebras and so forth. And she has to try to save her village, if you like, from the evil king and all his mercenaries who are trying to take over the jungle. That's basically it, if you like. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I don't want to, go on about it for 2 hours. So it's, but I just absolutely loved it. I suppose I would say to people that if you like Tarzan movies, give this a try. You'll probably like it. It's a different perspective, but it's, what does everyone think? I mean, did you see it? Did you just think it's a rip-off of Tarzan or not?
No, I think there's some hidden elements in here too. Like, I think one of the messages is don't fuck with nature. Don't fuck with the animals.
Yeah, no, totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
You can kind of get that from it too. Even as silly as crazy as this movie is, you could actually get that, from it. So, I thought it was a great flick. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I'm going to expound on those two words you said, silly and crazy, but in the most flattering, nicest sense of those words, because this movie really could have been complete garbage, and it's a real feast for the eyes. First off, Tanya Roberts as Sheena is absolutely fucking gorgeous. She has she has that pinnacle... Yeah, that 80s. She has that 80s beauty that was just like at the time. If you were, wanted to be a model, if you wanted to be a gorgeous lady, Tanya Roberts is the kind of woman you wanted to look like. Just her style, her hair, her body, just gorgeous, beautiful woman. Total eye candy. Whether you're straight or gay or trisexual, you'll try anything. Definitely worth it just to watch it for her. But also the scenery, like they really took this movie highly seriously. They invested so much. Yeah, huge budget. I love the animals. For me, seeing all the animals, seeing the fucking zebra, which I read up on was actually a horse that they painted with zebra makeup, but still, I loved seeing Sheena riding the zebra. I loved seeing actual lions and the chimpanzees. They even had a little hedgehog that when she was a child and she was practicing her animal summoning skill, she summoned the little hedgehog, and it was like, oh, it's so cute. And I was like, wow, they actually flew in animals from Hollywood to Africa because they had to have trained animals. Understandably, you're not going to get a fucking lion to do what you want on camera unless that motherfucker's been trained in Hollywood. But I was like, just for the scenery, just seeing Africa, seeing the beautiful people of Africa, seeing the animals. I'm just like, even if you don't like the story and you think the story is stupid, I mean, it really is a feast for the eyes. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Wonderful backdrop.
Really enjoyed this.
Well, this was all actually filmed on location in Kenya. They just upped everything from Hollywood and moved to Kenya, and it almost broke the back of Colombia, who were actually making it, because the bill for this movie went, I think, up over $37 million in 1984. This movie only ever collected about 5 or 6 million back at the box office. It was a total flop. Apparently, filming was just a disaster. They just had one problem after another problem after another problem. They had problems where they had to hire armed guards to protect the American animals, if you like, who had been flown into Kenya, because the native animals of Kenya kept either trying to hunt them down or mate with them, or just they apparently just had so many problems, and just the location. Kenya just being, the other thing too is they don't really, there's a couple of shots obviously set, in the towns, in the cities, if you like, because I think they filmed some of it in Nairobi, but the rest of it is all filmed out on the, on the flatlands, the savannah, and the logistics of filming this was just amazing in 1984. It was huge. Just absolutely huge.
Explosions. The effects were all real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, you guys mentioned this being some compare this to Tarzan. They call it the female Tarzan, and it's funny because I didn't even catch that parallel at all. I didn't feel like this was a Tarzan ripoff at all. I felt like Sheena was her own character, and even though there is a scene where you see her swinging from a vine for half a second, and you can very clearly see that's a body double, but I forgive you, movie, I forgive you. But no, but I was like, I didn't at one point feel like, oh, this is a total ripoff of Tarzan. Like, no, I really felt like she held her own as this character. I mean, there's a lot of little tiny flaws with this movie, like, which are typical for Hollywood blockbusters. First off, okay, she's a Caucasian female that is being raised in an African setting around an indigenous African tribe. But she speaks the most perfect fucking American accent in English I've heard ever.
Well, although it must be said, because actually I should tell everybody the history of Sheena, and it will explain that how this is not a Tarzan ripoff. It is just coincidence, if you like. But just remember that point about her accent, because I want to come back to that if we can. I think it's really important. But the original Sheena comic books actually started in Britain in 1937. Wow. This is how old this story is. This is, its own story. And it is, they've taken some liberties with the movie. There's stuff in the movie that's not in the comic books, okay? Mm-hmm. The love story, where she falls in love with the reporter, all that stuff never happens, in the original stories. But I think it worked well in the movie. But no, the comic book started in 1937. It would then go on to actually become an American TV series in 1955. And after this movie, it would then be rebirthed again in Hollywood as another TV series in 2000. And in fact, Sheena was played by Irish McCall in 1955. And then in 2000, she'd be played by somebody I think we're all pretty familiar with, Gina Lee Nolan from Baywatch, would actually take on the role. But they would change it a little bit even further to the extent that Sheena would not only have the ability to speak to animals and summon animals, she would also get this shape-shifting capability in the later TV show, where she could actually turn into animals, which was really amazing.
That's really Queen of the Jungle.
But the thing you have to remember about this story, okay, it started in 1937, and here you have a woman fighting against a male-dominated what was seen in 1937 as colonialisation. So she's actually fighting against the empires of Britain and France and, and all this sort of stuff. And she's defending the environment. The thing about Sheena is she doesn't necessarily, like in this movie, she's fighting a lot more for the people of the tribe. But in the general stories, she actually fights for the animals and the environment. She'll turn on her own. She'll actually turn on her own people if they're harming the animals. So if you think about this, you've created a female eco-warrior in 1937. It's actually kind of an amazing story just within itself.
That's unheard of at that time.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay, now hook me up. Help me out here. Why is her English so good?
Well, I don't actually think it is, because when you listen to her, she actually speaks in slightly broken English. Yes. Let's face it, Tanya Roberts was not exactly really going to be able to get some sort of African dialect down. I mean, she was a pretty well-known actress, but she wasn't exactly, let's just say she wasn't classically trained, put it that way.
Fair enough.
So, but if you do notice, she does have a bit of a broken accent in it. Like she sort of says, how are you, Vic Casey? She doesn't come in and sort of say, hi, Vic Casey, how you going? You know, she does sort of use that bit of a broken one.
Yeah.
The problem, though, is that if you watch the TV series from 2000 with Gina Lee Nolan, she almost sounds like she's just stepped out of Los Angeles University. You know, she doesn't even attempt to have a broken accent. In fact, she has a full-on California accent. Which is kind of amazing. But no, I thought her accent was well. Yeah, it's you know, it's English, but I think it's still a bit broken, you know. So, but anyway, guys, I've been rambling. You take it, guys. I want to hear more of your thoughts.
Okay. I was actually impressed that they touched on the whole kissing thing in this movie because for a long time, maybe some people don't know this, I was late to the party on this. I thought every single person on the planet kisses, and it turns out kissing is very cultural. There are a lot of indigenous tribes in South America as well as in Africa that do not kiss mouth to mouth. It's just not something that's part of their culture. They show physical and romantic affection in other ways. And they actually touched on that in this movie whenever Vic Casey kisses Sheena, and she's like, "Why'd you do that? Mouths are for food."
Yeah, I know.
I was like, you know what? No, I was like, that's good. This is good because they're showing she's not going around, you know, swapping spit with just every Tom, Dick, and Mohammed and, you know, Kinta Kunte in Africa. You know, this is a special thing and this is very cultural. And he's showing her in his culture how they show romantic affection. And she's got to learn this. But I did like that part that they actually showed that.
The other thing, though, that I quite liked about the path that this movie sort of went down, and the latter 2000 TV show does the same thing as well, and that is that the original stories, if you look at the comic books or if you look at the 1955 TV version, it's always very much whites imposing, you know, trying to conquer Africa. Right? Trying to mine everything up, dig everything up, shoot everything, and all this sort of stuff. But in this movie, it changes it a little bit, and to the sense that it's showing that corruption isn't racist. You can be white, you can be black, it doesn't matter. You know, being good or bad doesn't have anything to do about your skin color. You know, so
right.
I like that about, you know, this movie. So you had a black, corrupt government. You still had the baddies were all white because they were mercenaries, meant to be like European and American mercenaries. But I like the way that it sort of said, we don't care about culture in this. It doesn't matter, black or white. You can still be good or bad. Right,
totally. Yeah. I thought they hit that message home really well too.
You know, so I thought that was sort of, a really nice thing. But it is interesting though in this, you know, it's still, 1984. So they're still called mercenaries, not private contractors, as we call them now.
Is that what they're called now? I didn't know.
After Iraq, they all got changed. They're not called mercenaries anymore because it sounds bad when your country's hiring mercenaries, so they're called private contractors.
Fair enough.
These days.
Oh, you know what? This movie, the reason I didn't have high expectations was I confused it with that other movie that you like, Warren. That I was like, oh God, I thought it was
which movie is that?
That recent one, that
Inara. Jungle Girl. Yeah,
I thought it was that.
But that's.
I was like, oh God, are we really watching this movie?
No, but that's that is very different because that's actually like an Amazon, you know, movie, and so which and Amazon movies are very different. I mean, obviously, Amazon movies work on the idea that women are in control, but in Amazon movies, generally women are very violent, where Sheen is not violent.
But I didn't realize I got it confused with that movie until like almost towards the end of the movie, and I kept thinking, Warren said there's a scene where her chimpanzee gets tortured. When are they going to do that? And it never happened, and I'm like, I thought that was this movie. And then finally, like, somehow I stumbled across the other one, and I'm like, oh, that's a totally different movie. Okay. I know. I thought I got a bad edit of the movie. I was like, they cut out the part where they torture the chimpanzee for information.
Yes, totally different film.
I was like, totally different movie. Never mind. Sorry.
But it is interesting, though, in this movie that when they're hunting down the journalist Vic Casey and Sheena, who have teamed up, you know, to try to stop the evil president and the mercenaries from, digging up all the iron ore and destroying their homeland. They're prepared to fight and fight and fight, to stop them until the mercenaries start attacking the animals. And then they say, no, all right, we give up because we can't allow you to hurt the animals. And that's that eco message, from Sheena, which it's so
very
important.
Powerful, I mean.
Yeah.
That is actually, yeah.
And
it was
2016, and look how many of those animals have gone extinct.
Oh,
so I mean, that movie is very, very powerful.
Yeah,
when you think about it in that aspect.
Yeah, also that scene, the particular animal she was protecting. This wasn't like elephants or lions or chimpanzees. This was a lesser known, I guess you could say less popularized animal too. It was a herd of, I'm not even sure what they were, to be honest. A herd of something with 4 legs and horns. I'm not sure what they were.
Probably gazelle or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And I was like, that's a powerful message that, she was willing to, give her life to protect that herd of animals. Yeah, I really liked this movie. It was really a treat. It's really a joy. It's totally worth watching. Even if you're just an animal lover, it's worth it just to see these, exotic, what we consider safari animals in Western culture. So really beautifully done. And I did like the bad guys. I do like that the bad guys weren't your typical white, Western European or, North American, CEOs, that it was their own government that was turning against them and trying to make a profit and willing to kill people. The guy was willing to kill his own brother to, just for money, to make profit. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like the bad white guys in this are just the mercenaries. The bad people who are running all the corruption are actually, they're indigenous Africans themselves. Trying to rob their own treasuries, and they're even framing their own people of committing this crime to further their own, monetary agenda. So it was like, wow, that's pretty evil. Well, that's exactly right, because you have the king, who is actually a very good king. He cares about his people. He also understands the cultural diversity within his country. So he wants to respect the cultural diversity, and, he wants to build one country made of different people. It's a great message. But then, of course, he's got his evil brother who wants to take over the throne, prepared to murder his own brother, and then he just wants to rob the treasury of the country to get rich.
It's like the Lion King.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
It makes you wonder if they got that from this movie.
Huh.
Oh, it's very possible. Although, mind you, it is a story that has been told time and time
since
again.
the 30s and before that, I guess. What do you guys think of the love story between Sheena and the white journalist Vic Casey?
Oh, that was great, because there's one scene where he was watching her down by the river, and if I would have had this as a kid, I probably would have been jerking off to it continuously, because she's naked, obviously, she's bathing, and
she's gorgeous.
She's like, come in here and take off your clothes, and he pushes out. I would have been jumping right in there. I mean,
You know what, though? He realized how innocent she was, and that she didn't realize the effect she was having on him, and he realized
he was a gentleman. I'm a total pervert. I would have jumped in the river. But she probably would have killed me and fed me to the lions. So I
was a little conflicted about this love story, simply because I was kind of like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, simply because this is supposed to be a Caucasian woman that's grown up in an indigenous tribe, and she doesn't have an indigenous suitor already lined up. So I thought it was kind of weird that they wait till a white guy comes along for her to have a love interest. I was kind of like, I think that was Hollywood.
What's wrong with the black guy? What about him?
Well, you've got to remember, though, that she and the shaman, who is basically her mother, if you like, who becomes her adopted mother, they sort of live slightly outside of the community. You've got to remember that. They don't they don't really live within the tribe, although they are part of the tribe, all right, obviously very much so, but they sort of live outside. The shaman is grooming her as the great protector of their land. So, so you've got to sort of see it from that point of view. The reality of Sheena is that, yeah, in truth, she's either probably going to end up in a relationship with a black Indigenous guy, or she's going to stay single her whole entire life. Because
she has a mission and a prophecy to fulfill.
Yeah,
okay.
but I think the romance with Vic Casey, the journalist, is that's just the love story to throw in to sell it to a Hollywood audience. It's I mean, I think that's really all it is. But the other thing though is you talk about, because obviously Tanya Roberts gets very naked in this movie quite a lot. And,
yes, she does.
And the thing you've got to remember too is that this was 1984, and Tanya Roberts, of course, was this, you've got to remember, she was a Charlie's Angel, so getting a Charlie's Angel naked on the big screen, this was a big deal.
I bet. My God.
This was actually, although obviously she did make quite a number of movies where she would get naked, but it was a big deal. And yeah, of course, that was, purely sold for perv factor, and I don't complain one bit.
No, me either.
No, me neither. I enjoyed seeing her clothed and naked. Beautiful woman. And she's aged quite nicely. She is becoming active on social media, and yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It's good to see her. Yeah,
she's
good to see her.
She's only. I've actually been friends on Facebook with Tanya Roberts for a couple of years now, but it's
nice.
But she's only just started a Twitter account. In fact, she only started one about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
so if you do want to follow her on Twitter, you actually can now, because I know, Facebook is often very difficult because people try to make their Facebook more personal.
Right there, dude.
Right.
But the fact is that she's now on Twitter means that everyone can follow her. So, so I would recommend everybody, type in Tanya Roberts into Twitter, and I can't remember her actual Twitter address, to be honest. Although I can probably...
I don't remember either. You'll have to forgive me. Yeah, I don't have it available either.
No, I can actually quickly find it if someone can just play some elevator music or talk or whatever everybody does. Oh, here we go.
She's also in another movie that I love from the 80s. It starred her and Rowdy Roddy Piper, and that movie is Body Slam.
Oh, fantastic.
I love that movie.
Oh, yeah.
She's in that one, too.
And
so I was like, oh, she's in Sheena? Oh, okay, I gotta see this. Cool.
She's been in a ton of movies, and if a lot of people don't recognize her, where you will recognize her, more recently, although it was still a while ago, was from That 70s Show. She was, of course, in the first couple of seasons of that 70s show. But
she played Midge Pinciotti.
Yes, yes.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Midge. So, yeah, she was in a couple of episodes of that in 2004.
I've just found her Twitter address. It's Tanya V. Roberts.
There you go, Tanya V. Roberts.
Tanya V.
So
Roberts.
go follow her. Tell her that
will...
cult movie show sent you.
Yeah, definitely.
I will ask her for an autograph.
Because we definitely would love her to follow us back at this show. So yeah, please tell her that we sent you, most definitely. But it was interesting that she wasn't originally the first choice for this movie.
Oh.
It was actually Raquel Welch that they wanted.
Oh, okay.
But I actually think that casting Tanya was actually the best, because I just think she's perfect for this. She was growing in popularity at the time. She was starting to become a big star, and I just think she just looked so good because that's the thing about Sheena, is meant to be so different. I mean, because even Tarzan, if you think about it, is still this dark-haired guy, in Africa. He's still white, obviously, but the idea that Sheena is a blonde is like a blonde white woman in Africa. It just makes her stand out so much.
Oh, totally.
You
totally.
know?
And I think, unfortunately, I think that's why a lot of people don't take this movie seriously at first.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what? But, I mean, they really do a nice job of setting up the character. And, hey, her parents were there doing some scientific studies, and they end up dying. And, the tribe the shaman or shaman. I prefer to say shaman. Shaman sounds weird to me, but that's what they say in the movie. Anyway, the shaman takes it as a sign that she's supposed to be the great protector that, the prophecy foretold. And I mean, the way they set up the story is actually quite well done. It's just an enjoy. It's a piece to enjoy. It really is.
And the other thing... sorry, no, go on, Chris.
I was just going to say, when I first started watching it, I automatically thought the gods must be crazy. I was waiting for clicking noises.
Yeah.
So that's when I stopped it and I went and smoked a joint and then came back to it. And I was like, wow. It was a great movie, though. I really enjoyed it.
The other thing, too, which is really nice, is because it is all shot on location in Kenya, the other great thing about it is that all the vehicles, all the people walking around, what was obviously Nairobi, but it's a mythical city, obviously, in this. But
right, yeah.
They're real African people. For instance, there's nothing worse than when you see something that's set in Africa and all the cars are American. Right? Because you go to Africa and that's just not the case. All the cars are either British or French or German. They're never American, So the beauty of this is that all of the cars were all British. Also, when we see the actual army, not the mercenaries, you'll see them. They're real Kenyan soldiers. So what you're seeing is real Africa, not an American interpretation of it. So I think that just adds to this movie as well,
All right. So how many Eric Roberts do we give this movie?
I give it a 4.
Yeah, I agree. I give it 4 Eric Roberts out of 5.
I give it 5 million.
Damn, I should have saw that.
That's raising the bar.
Okay, so we can definitely recommend this movie if you're looking for some lighthearted fun, or you just want to see some beautiful scenery, beautiful shots. If you want to see a romantic love story with a little bit of adventure and action, yeah, we can definitely recommend Sheena from 1984. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. It's a great film. It's actually one of my desert island discs. Like if I'm stuck on a desert island somewhere, a bottle of scotch and a DVD copy of Sheena, and I'll be pretty happy.
Sounds like a good time.
I really will. All right. Well, we should probably wrap it up. I hope everyone has enjoyed this week's podcast. Some slightly different movies to what we normally do, but I think that's been really fun, mix it up a little bit and stuff. So I hope everyone has enjoyed it. I've had a great time, as always. I always have, such a great time. And thank you, Prez, for coming on. It's been so great, getting your thoughts and stuff.
Thank you guys for inviting me.
Thanks for lending your brain and lending your
what's left of it.
So that's been absolutely fantastic. So, as always, we should do some shout outs. Now, remember, of course, you can follow this podcast on Twitter. The address is Cult Movie Show, all one word. So please follow us there. That's where you'll find all the updates and everything like that. And Velvet has actually been handling that for us at the moment. And I must say, Velvet, I want to publicly thank you. You are doing a magnificent job. You really are.
Oh, thank you.
All the stuff.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying the engagement we're getting from all the new friends we're making on Twitter, and they're checking out the show. I appreciate the retweets and the mentions, and keep tweeting us and emailing us, letting us know what other movies you want us to review at Cult Movie Show on Twitter. And also, if you want to follow me personally, you can go to OMG It's Velvet on Twitter and Instagram, but I do post adult content, so please be 18 years or older. And Prez, take it away. Plug anything you want to plug. Phone numbers, addresses, social media. Go for it.
All right. Everything, the nucleus is UGS, the number4life.com, so it's UGSforlife.com. You want to follow us on Twitter, it's UG Society FTI. And make sure to check out Underground Saturday Nights here in a few minutes with Velvet Rose and Mac J. Also, check out the Murder Master Music Show if you like some really good hip-hop, not this lame junk they got going on today. Check us out. And, man, once again, thank you guys for having me. I had a great time.
Oh no, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Also, just
thank you, my friend.
Yep, and just very quickly, just very quickly before we go, you can of course follow myself at Martini Superdry on Twitter. Got it right if you are so inclined, and of course, please follow OFTU Podcast on Twitter. They help us out a lot. Of course, we always want to ask everyone to follow Alana Evans at Alana Evans ets, because of course she provides the music to this show. And of course, as we said before, follow Tanya Roberts. Okay. And
most definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's about it, guys.
All right, awesome.
No
Until
worries.
next time.
Till next time, we'll be back with podcast 20. This has been podcast number 19. And we will leave you, as always, with the wonderful and charming Alana Evans and Perfect.